Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show here on the Delta Report. Today is Monday, the 30th of May, 2022. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. Now, this is going to be a synopsis. Basically, I'm trying to look at the world of what's going on right now and what we can expect just down the road, just ahead. You know? And so, we got a war going on. Well, no news to any of you guys. You guys all know we got a war going on over in Russia and in China. Not in China, but in Russia and in Ukraine, specifically. Russia's invaded Ukraine. Well, right now, I mean, in the early stages of this Russian-Ukraine war, it was a bit really more scary than it is now, especially when Russia went on high nuclear alert. And, you know, Russia's got some new fantastically powerful, nasty weapons. I'll talk about one in particular real quick. I'll mention about it. It's called the Poseidon. It's an unmanned drone, but it's actually more like a submarine. It's big. It's like 70 feet long. And what it's basically designed to do is to go down on the bottom of the ocean and kind of just drift along very quietly and silently and deadly across the bottom of the ocean floor till it reaches its target. When it gets close to its target, it rushes up in speed to about 60 miles an hour or 100 kilometers an hour. And then it blows up when it gets to its target. It blows up underneath the water with a significantly powerful nuclear weapon that is charged with cobalt. Now, the nuclear explosion creates a massive tidal wave. A tidal wave that could be as high as 500 meters high, size tidal wave caused by the explosion, which rushes on shore to meet any country that opposes Russia. And this is the Poseidon. It's called the Poseidon. It's a sneaky target. It's a sneaky because it sneaks deep underneath the ocean to its target area, which would probably be just offshore of a major city, maybe New York or maybe a coastal city. And it blows up, and then a giant wave washes in over the city with radiation, unbelievably high amounts of radiation, because it's a cobalt type nuclear weapon, and that releases the worst kind of radiation. But what would it do to the oceans? All that cobalt radiation into the oceans. So Russia, I guess, is designated to create 30 of these weapons. So we got this war going on in Ukraine. It was a bit scary toward the start of the war because Russia went on high nuclear alert or standby to launch nuclear weapons. But it didn't happen. Now it's kind of a stalemate going on over in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. They're fighting back and forth for the same territory. That Russia gains a little bit of territory, then they push the Russians back, and then the Russians gain a little bit, and then the Ukrainians push them back a little bit, and it's back and forth right now. Kind of a stalemated war. Russia's on the offensive right now. They're pushing really hard in this war. But Ukraine is waiting to receive some long-range missiles that they could use to attack the Russian fleet in around the Black Sea, in around Odessa, just south of Odessa, in there, toward Snake Island, a place called Snake Island. So we got that going on. Then at the same time, probably the biggest story that's going unnoticed by everybody out there is the enormous Ponzi scheme that was started in the year roughly in the year 1913, 1914, has run till now. And it's the end of a giant Ponzi scheme, and this Ponzi scheme is called Fiat Money. And math dictates that these fiat currencies we have in the world today have reached the expiry date. They're all ready to collapse. pretty much simultaneously. We have cryptocurrency waiting in the wings to become a store of value while the fiat currencies collapse. What else is going on in the world? Weather's gone crazy, if you guys haven't noticed. Hailstorms. We're getting monster hailstorms in places that don't normally get hailstorms. Now, the other day, I was looking at the desert out there in the Middle East. The desert in the Middle East, the place they never get water. And they had hail coming down from the sky, and they were flooded, and they were driving through like 6 inches of water on the desert floor. This tells you how unusual things are right now. We got very unusual things happening in the weather. In the wintertime, we're getting a new phenomenon that's forming that's called a polar vortex that can make it unimaginably cold. We're talking about like 50 degrees below zero Fahrenheit. Well, of course, they both merge in around those temperatures. Fahrenheit and Celsius both merge. So you're talking about minus 50 Celsius. You're talking about same Fahrenheit, roughly, about that. Somewhere they merge there. I'm not exactly sure how far below zero. But anyway, it's that cold in a polar vortex. And then in the summertime, we're getting something that's called a heat dome. Something that we never had before. With temperatures that can exceed 40 degrees Celsius for extended periods of time. At the same time, we have in the United States, they've decommissioned so many coal-fired power plants. It's ridiculous. And also, you know, cryptocurrency miners are sucking up a lot of the world's energy to produce Bitcoin. I mean, it's absolutely they're tapping into different places where they can get cheap energy. Places like hydroelectric power plants and things like that. Now, out in the West, in the United States, some of the dams, big dam systems that they have there to produce hydroelectric power are becoming so low they're not going to be able to produce hydroelectric power. And you're talking about millions of people possibly going without power because of the extra power that puts in, along with the coal-fired plants that they've shut down or decommissioned. So we're looking at possible power outages coming to the United States. We're looking at a failure of the currency worldwide, all the fiat currencies, which is basically paper money, what you call paper money worldwide. It's got a big problem, a mathematical problem that won't go away. Now, looking at food production. This year, because of embargoes on things like fertilizers, because of high diesel costs and things like that, we're looking at farms that are probably going to produce 30% less. Plus, problems getting the grain out of places like Ukraine and Russia, which produce 25 to 30% of the world's wheat products. So we got problems there too. So basically what that amounts to is we did have enough food to feed 8 billion people, and now we probably got enough food to only feed 5 or 6 billion. So that would mean billions of people are going to have to go without food. How are we going to solve that problem? Like when it comes 6 months from now, when inventories of grain and food supplies start to run short in the world. What are we going to do? Fight over food too? So we've got a lot of problems. We got weather problems. Weather-related problems. We got ice. Look, I saw some tornadoes out in Texas that must have been a mile wide there just a week or so ago. Unbelievable. And, you know, some of the, I seen pictures coming from, where was it? I saw this tornado go through. Incredible power of the thing and the speed it was moving at. It was like 1 second. The people's houses, in a whole city block, people's houses, the roofs were there. 1 second later, the roofs were all gone. Their houses were completely demolished, and the tornado was gone, and the sun was out. Okay, so you had the sun out. You couldn't see any storm. This thing was just coming along from nowhere. Bam! Just smash a whole community to pieces. The sun's out, not raining or anything. It just blows their houses all to pieces, and 1 second later, it's gone. It's like 1 second it's not there, the next second it's there, the next second it's gone, and your house is all just torn to pieces. Almost like unbelievable. That was a tornado, what it actually is able to do. And the energy that comes out of something like that. So we got a world in chaos right now. It seems like when we went into 2020, we entered into this period of chaos. And when's it going to end? Well, that's the $6,400 question. That's what we're all waiting to find out. But, you know, I'm going to tell you guys, it looks to me like it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So it's time for you guys to prepare. Now, how do you do that? I'm going to talk about that just for a minute. You need to put away an emergency medical kit. You need to put away bottled water. You need to store away canned food for yourself. You need to get to know your neighbors in your neighborhood. You need something for house defense. You also need a bug out plan too, along with all that. And whatever car you have could be a good bug out vehicle. It's probably better than going on foot. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have a little bit of a gas can stored away, and maybe a small generator, and maybe possibly a small air conditioner or heater, or both, that'll run off of the generator, so that you don't freeze to death. Because of the way the weather is now, you could end up freezing to death, and a month later you could end up cooking. It's a hard world. It's getting to be a hard, nasty world out there. And it doesn't look like it's going to get better. It looks like it's going to intensify an awful lot worse in the next little while. And it's awful hard, too, to protect your assets. Because the banking system is going to be on the verge of collapse pretty soon. Because basically the financial system is starting to shut down. And already in China, we've seen these problems where they just deny them access to their bank accounts. The bank just says, okay, we're closed. And they say, well, when are you going to open up? And it's like the 5th of never. And the people get upset and mad, and they go to the bank, but that doesn't do any good. It seems like nowadays protests do not do any good. It seems like during the Yellow Vest movement in France, it kind of is where it started, where the government just seemingly ignores protesters now. That's what they do. They just wait for them to go home. They send out the riot police, and that's all they do, is they just wait for them to go home, wait for them to give up. So they know sooner or later they're just going to get tired of screaming and yelling and protesting, and they just wait for them to go home, and they don't listen to them anymore. They don't listen to what they have to say. This was proven here in Canada. That they wouldn't listen to what they had to say. They wouldn't sit down and talk with them or anything. They just basically they just wait until the protest ends. And that's the way the governments now deal with protests. And so protesting doesn't do any good. And this is why the protesters, in the end, they start to think about doing things they probably shouldn't do, because their protest is going unheard. You know, and so that's the kind of world we live in today. And so that one thing's been taken away from the people. They didn't take the right to protest away from you. What they've done is they've stopped listening to what you have to say. And the second thing is around the world, electronic voting's now come into vogue. And anything, if you know anything about computers, you know everything that goes onto a computer can be accessed or controlled. And so, to make everything fair, how can things be fair nowadays? Nothing's fair anymore either. And so we moved into a society where everything is unfair, that everybody else has an unfair advantage, especially if they're into a pool of knowledge or money that you're not able to get access into, because of the way the banking system is set up unfairly as well. And so these are very difficult waters to navigate right now. And so to do a synopsis of basically what's going on right now. I've tried to give it to you guys in a nutshell. It doesn't look good. But one of the things you can do for yourself is try your best to prepare. And you might find that those preparations might come in darn, they might save you. They might save your butt. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.